right, so I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to everyone. Also here and online, we've had a really big online community, so I welcome everyone attending online. My name is Erin Mayo Adam, and I am the director of the LGBTQ Policy Center at Roosevelt House and a professor in the Political Science Department at Hunter College. And I'm delighted to introduce today's event celebrating Transgender Day of Visibility. Tonight's event brings together a panel of New York City-based advocates and policymakers who work on human rights and justice issues impacting NYC's transgender and non-binary communities. And I think one of our panelists is joining now. Feel free to just come right up onto the stage. Perfect timing. So tonight's discussion will address recent policy victories in New York, including the passage of the Gender Non-Discrimination Act, or GENDA, in 2019, and the repeal of the Walking While Trans law in 2021. In addition, the discussion will consider continuing policy challenges that directly impact New York's transgender community, with a focus on policies that intersect race and gender. But before we begin, I'd like to introduce the panelists, and also we have the commissioner for the New York City Commission on Human Rights with us this evening. So we'll introduce her as well to give some opening remarks. So first, the panelists. Our moderator this evening is Zain Marib. Zain is an assistant professor of political science and the co-director of the Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies program at Fordham University. Zain's research and teaching interests are located at the intersection of scholarship on race, gender, and sexuality, interest groups and social movements, and marginalized political identities in the United States. Zain's research has been published in numerous academic journals, including Signs, Transgender Studies Quarterly, Politics, Groups, and Identities, Politics and Gender, and New Political Science. And their current book project, Terms of Exclusion, explores the brokering of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender interest group coalition between 1968 and 2004. And Zain is also a frequent contributor to the Washington Post, including 2 recent articles that explain the history behind the rise of anti-trans policy in the United States, which should be really insightful for tonight's event. In addition, we are delighted to have Sean Ebony Coleman with us today. Sean is the founder and executive director of Destination Tomorrow, a TLGBTQ center in the South Bronx, serving the community through educational, financial, housing, health, and personal support programs. The grassroots organization puts an emphasis on providing support to vulnerable members of the TLGBTQ community that takes them off the path of requiring emergency care, focusing on economic, social, and mental health empowerment on a holistic level. As a nationally recognized leader in the transgender community and the first African American transgender experience to operate a TLGBTQ center in New York City, Sean plays a key role in advocating for policies that directly impact the lives of millions of TLGBTQ New Yorkers. Sean is also the founding managing partner of Sean Ebony Coleman Consulting, where he specializes in DEIE strategies for TLGBTQ communities, and he is part of Gilead's National Advisory Group and manages Transcend, the Transcend Community Impact Fund, $1 million fund that supports trans-led organizations nationwide. So we're thrilled to have Sean with us this evening. Next, I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to introduce Cecilia Gentili. Cecilia is an advocate, organizer, and storyteller working at the intersections of sex work, immigrant rights, incarceration issues, and the liberation of transgender people. Originally from Argentina, Cecilia came to the United States and survived for 10 years as an undocumented immigrant, gaining a living through sex work. She has years of experience working in direct services with organizations like the LGBT Center, and she became the director of policy at GMHC before creating Trans Equity Consulting to advocate directly for better policy for transgender people at the local, state, and federal level. Cecilia is also a founding member of Decrim NY, a coalition working towards a decriminalization, decarceration, and destigmatization of people in the sex trade. And as a performer, Cecilia starred as Ms. Orlando in the hit FX show Pose, and she also performed a one-woman show called The Knife Cuts Both Ways, as well as countless storytelling events across the country. And her recently published memoir, Faltas, Letters to Everyone in My Hometown Who Isn't My Rapist, won the 2023 Stonewall Book Award. So we're really thrilled to have Cecilia with us this evening. And finally, and certainly not least, I would like to introduce Lala Zanel. Lala is an advocate, organizer, and artist working towards liberation for transgender and non-binary communities, with a particular focus on transgender women of color, leadership development, and transgender sex workers. Lala has years of experience working in organizing and advocacy spaces, such as with the New York City Anti-Violence Project, where as lead organizer, she coordinated outreach, advocacy, and networking on behalf of LGBTQ New Yorkers who have experienced violence. She has also organized and held a vigil for national and local transgender community members, and she currently leads the ACLU's national advocacy and organizing work to support and empower transgender and non-binary people. So we're really thrilled to have tonight's panel. Excellent. Now, for tonight's event, Zane Marie will be moderating, and we'll spend the last 15 minutes or so with an audience Q&A, and we'll have a reception afterwards. But before I turn it over to Zane, I wanted to briefly give the floor to Annabelle Palma, the Commissioner of the New York City Commission on Human Rights, just to give a couple of remarks. They're the co-sponsors of tonight's event.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And it's a pleasure to be here tonight. I wish that we didn't have to do these panels, that it would just be part of our everyday lives, just to be amongst each other without having to continue to raise awareness for something that's just so normal and so proper, right? To be ourselves, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be among this panel. I know Sean from the Bronx, where I was born and raised, and today, and today I met Zane and Lala and Cecile, and I know that we'll continue to do great work together. So thank you for all that you do and that you will continue to do. Thank you so much to the LGBTQ Policy Center for partnering with the Commission on Human Rights to organize today's event. It's no secret that trans people are under attack in our country, and we have to continue to raise our voices, and we have to continue to work together to make sure that that everyone is protected. The senseless attacks on trans and non-binary people, Black trans women in particular, persist at frightening levels. Laws entrenched in hate are sprouting up across the nation, banning children from becoming who they are, and books censoring trans voices from schools and libraries. But New York has its own laws too, and we enforce them, and we take it serious, and we know that our community is one community. For those of you unfamiliar with the New York City Commission on Human Rights, we are the agency tasked with enforcing the New York City Human Rights Law, one of the most comprehensive anti-discrimination laws in this country. The law covers 27 protected categories against discrimination and bias in housing, employment, and public accommodation. Simply put, in our city, it's your right to be you, and the Commission has your back, and we will make sure that we continue to fight every day to protect all New Yorkers. The Commission works to address and prevent discrimination and bias towards trans and non-binary folks. We investigate allegations of discrimination and prosecute violators. Just last year, the Commission brokered a settlement with New York Presbyterian Hospital for repeatedly misgendering a trans patient. But we just don't address discrimination when it happens. Our goal is to root discrimination where it grows. Education and outreach are some of our most valuable tools when preventing discrimination. The Commission traverses the 5 boroughs, organizing events like today's and conducting trainings such as working with transgender and gendering nonconforming community workshops And we do that on a daily basis, not only on days of visibility or on Pride Month. We do that throughout the year. And I have to say that I am so proud of the team that I get to work with, like Darryl Cochran and Tabitha, who will be joining us soon, to work on these issues, because they have lived them, they experience them on a daily basis, and they bring their authentic self to our commission, which then allows us to do the work that we do. This workshop promotes awareness around the discrimination trans New Yorkers experience and their protections under the New York City human rights law. Last year, the Commission's dedicated staff presented trainings to the Department of Probation, Department of Social Services, and Manhattan and Queensborough President's Office, just to name a few. We conduct trainings with both employers and employees, with housing seekers, tenants, landlords, and brokers, casting a wide net so all New Yorkers know their rights and responsibilities. Alongside education, policy aimed at root causes of inequity and discrimination are crucial. Panels like the ones organized tonight are essential to the work that we do. I look forward to the stimulating discussion that these great individuals are gonna bring today. And these panelists are entrenched in policies that have changed the lives, right, of individuals who are part of the trans community, and I know will continue to work to protect the lives and well-being of trans and non-binary folks, not only here in New York City, but nationwide. So thank you so much again for the work that you do, and you have a true partner in the New York City Commission on Human Rights. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's dive in. I want to frame this conversation with the observation that anti-trans, critical race theory bans, and the rollback of reproductive autonomy are linked together by forces interested in maintaining power for what scholars and activists refer to as the white supremacist, heteropatriarchal, and I would add cis-normative political order. And we're also convening today to mark the Transgender Day of Visibility. And so what I would like to start with is kind of your bird's eye view from each of you in the communities that you work with on what visibility means to you and the people that you partner with, and who is visible in this work and who isn't as visible as you would like. So I'll let you all decide who will go first. Cecilia, is that you jumping in?
Yes. Why not? I was late though, you know. I was just trying to shade them and say I'm gonna make an entrance. So you know, that's what I do. So thank you for having us. Thank you for organizing this. This is such a great opportunity to bring awareness and just to piggyback on what the commissioner was mentioning is, I kind of wish that visibility was invisibility, right? I want to be visible in a way that I don't have to be visible, right? I hate that we have to come to these dates and like, I don't know you all, but for Trans Day of Visibility, for Pride Month, and for Trans Day of Trans Week of Awareness or Remembrance, I'm so busy, right? And I just want to be busy all year talking about the beauty of our community and not having to choose these days to talk about all the needs that we have, all the hate that we encounter, all the murders that we experience, all the loss and pain that we encounter, right? I wanna spend, visibility throughout the year talking about our achievements, talking about how beautiful we are, talking about how wonderful we are to each other and to the world, right? So in a way, I kind of wish that we could be invisible, in these specific days because we are so visible throughout the whole year, though, And I try to do that, but it is unfortunate that we have to kind of like lean on these dates, these specific dates throughout the year to bring awareness. But I just wish that this could be like a consistent work that we do throughout the year. And yes, somehow I am a little bit tired of having to continue to do I mean, we've been doing this shit for so long, though. We've been like doing, we've been together for a long time, right? We've been doing these panels and we've been doing this for years. And like, although we live in a city that does have such an amazing, it had prepared an amazing landscape for trans people to thrive, because we live in a country that is going through a lot of issues for trans people. And guess what? Trans people from all over the country end up coming to New York looking for better opportunities, looking for for better options, right? And looking because we do have the best. So we are consistently dealing with the trauma that we ourselves have, and with the trauma from people from other places that come to, I'm not stranger to that. I came from another country to the United States. I landed in Florida, which quickly left, right? But, and I came to New York City because like this is the place to be. And, but this is something that consistently happens for trans people. Sorry, too long.
Oh, thank you, my brother. He's always such a gentleman. You have to pardon me. I'm part on a break from a vacation, a much-needed vacation, so I'm in vacation mode still. But even speaking of, thank you, clap, yes, because honey, yeah, we all need a break. We don't get a break in this work, and it just so happened I was able to get a break, and in this break I was able to be refreshed and renewed and being able to really sit with myself. When you're visible so many times, particularly when you're a leader doing this work, you're visible in a way, I don't like to say, because I don't like to buy into celebrityism, I do not. I believe that every human being is a human being. If they happen to get famous, glory to them. But I don't do this out of fame. I do this out of obligation because I deserve to take up every space that I take up. It just so happens I'm telling you that I'm trans, so you can know that there are people that are like me, that can be brilliant, that can be smart, that can take over the world. You're sitting with 3 people. As we said, we've been doing this for years. I came in as a volunteer. She was I'm gonna keep it real. She was an intern. I came in there as a client in her support group, met Sean through the work over the years, and look at Sean, owns 2 nonprofits, is giving back to the community. Cecilia has her own, has an all-run staff. I work at the ACLU, so everyone has a role. Everyone has a reason to be visible, but with visibility comes responsibility. And I think that people who watch us or see us or people who run organizations feel like, I just need a trans person. Yeah, no. You need a person that will be there that can anchor the change that you need to bring in the people that look like me into your establishments, because we are the product. You can do all the trainings in the world, but if you don't take those trainings and actually say, I'm going to take this training today and take what I learned and sit with my HR, sit with my manager, sit with my paperwork, sit with every system that I have the power to change and see, is it making sure that trans folks don't feel erased, non-binary folks don't feel erased? And what could I do to, you know what, give up my space? People think coming to hear conversations or coming in these things are great, but it's just nothing if when you wake up in the morning, you don't say, how can I be a better person to a trans person as I'm brushing my teeth and I'm in the car dropping my kids off? Is this school really trans friendly? Do I need to go in here and talk about this? Do I need to go talk to my commissioner today at the police station? Do I need to go to my board 10? It's a responsibility that we have to get there, and what resources do I have that I can leverage to help someone else, and not just help in a way that's like, yay, I done that, but really I'm going to invest in that person because that person deserves it, just like someone invested in you. I am here because someone invested in me. And it has been over 15, I can't even count. Like before this, I was doing sex work. Sex work is work, honey. I still love doing sex work. I'm gonna be real, I do. But also, there's been a liberating thing for me to get up every single day and have a job that I can do and say, I have to do this week. And me doing this week is gonna change people's lives. And this work is hard, and I have to show up. But as I show up, I gotta be renewed. That's why I had a vacation. I thank you people who leave this work, you forget that your trans folks need vacations. Make them take them. Most of us don't take them. That's why I ended up on a long vacation. My boss said, you about to get us in trouble with the government. You ain't took a vacation. You got to take this or you're going to lose it. I'm moving so much that I forget because I feel like I can't move away. Because if I move away, who's going to do it? But guess what? As we said, if you've been here for so long, there's so many people doing it in every circuit. I promise you, come to me in any demographic in the career world, I can find you a trans person. Want to bet money on that? I promise you, you just don't see and have access to them. We are everywhere in this world, and we have taken up space since the beginning of time, and we not going nowhere. So for the other side, the far right, we ain't going nowhere. As Ms. Major always tells us, we still effing here, and I didn't say it. That way you can get away with your F-bomb.
That's why I let y'all go first, because I knew both of y'all was going to drop something. Whenever I hear that question about what being visible means, right, it's a difficult one for me as a black trans man, right? Because historically, transmasculine voices and needs have been erased and in some ways ignored. So for me, being visible was like a no-brainer, because when we started, there wasn't many people like me that were willing to tell their story, right? 20-some odd years later, it's like, what does being visible mean now? Because you have so many folks that I think they almost feel like in this role, we're like advocates who get to fly here, and y'all gonna pay for me to talk, and you're gonna pay for my lived experience, and I just broke my phone, but they're gonna pay for lived experience and all of these things. And they don't recognize the hard work that goes into us actually like paving the way to do the work. So I think we need to like redefine what visibility looks like and its purpose. Its purpose is not to celebrate one individual. The purpose of visibility is to move to move the community along, to mobilize the community with one purpose, right? That's probably why we decided that we were going to organize and down south. We opened Destination Tomorrow South in Atlanta, Georgia, because there wasn't that kind of movement. There were folks that were doing the work, don't get me wrong, but the mobilization that we have in New York, right, that drove policy and that spoke to legislators and that got with our elected officials and partnered with our elected officials in a significant way, I hadn't seen it mirrored anywhere else. So for me, that's what visibility meant. It meant I'm gonna get in put my boots back on the ground after 20 years, and we're gonna like reorganize and reclaim what being visible means. But then there's the dangers to being visible, right? And I'm gonna say that the visibility that folks see, not the hard work that went into being to where we are, but the visibility that folks see, you'll see a Laverne Cox on television and Angelica Ross becoming the first black trans person to be in a leading role on Broadway, and they're like, they're accomplishing too much. We've given them too much. So now you have this visibility, and you have folks that never recognized us before saying, these people are viable. They have something in that community. We can't let them thrive. Why would we let them thrive? And I don't think we had any backlash for that, right? We didn't know what should our response look like when that's the other phone. What would our response look like when they came for us, right? I think we've been so reactive. We respond to things when we should have been organizing. You spoke about all of the things that voter suppression, voters' rights, a woman's right to choose, and how they're all linked. It's all intersected, right? The one thing that system had was they were well organized. They've been organizing for years with this purpose in mind, different channels, different buckets, but the organization has been the same. The way that they were able to like fund this movement at the same time and drive this division and hate. So while we're building rainbows and partying because we've gotten to, there's some recognition, we're visible, we're here. They're behind the scenes connecting the dots to say, okay, this is what we're gonna do to you, and we had no response. So now we need to take a proactive response. So visibility for me means I'm gonna look at all my allies and say, you know, for a long time we sat on the side, we let y'all come to our drag shows, y'all came to the parades and all of that other stuff. We had parties. We need you to help us now. And what it looks like now is, where the money at? Because they are well-funded. And if we have to catch up to them, we are so far behind on what it looks like. We know how to organize. We ain't got no money. So what does that look like? Visibility for me means now using this platform to organize in a way that when these attacks happen, no matter what state they happen in, that we have an organized response. And the response is consistent. Whatever we say in New York, we're saying in Dallas. Whatever we say in Dallas, we're saying in Florida. Whatever we say in Florida, we're in Arkansas. And we all understand that the funds we raised in New York, we may need them in Mississippi, but that's where we're going. And we're all showing up together. Not just the trans community, not just the non-binary. All of us are showing with our allies, and we're flooding the joint. That's what visibility looks like for me. Get too kind. Y'all did that because I broke my phone.
Thank you so much for those responses. So I pulled out a word from each of you. I heard beauty, taking up space, and mobilizing. And so this is a great segue into my next question. We are facing now what I would say is a vehement, coordinated, and cruel attack against transgender people, especially trans youth. And for years, trans people have combated this messaging in its more, less vehement forms by highlighting that trans people are disproportionately affected by all sorts of discrimination and violence compared especially to their LGB peers, and especially their LGB white peers. And yet this most recent wave of attacks highlights that the people who are mobilizing these attacks don't care, that actually the point is to make it impossible to live. And so we started to talk about this, but what I'm curious to hear from each of you is if you could choose the message that you would be sending or the way that you would reframe it, moving it away from this hurts us to where we should be or where we want to be, what would that look like?
Thank you for that. And just to add to it, I believe that we as trans people, especially young trans people at this moment, we are being used as a tool that to kind of like navigate the political landscape of the country, right? I don't think Republicans don't really care about trans people. They're just using this narrative that we are dangerous or that we are this because it creates panic, right? It creates panic in the base. It agitates the base and help them like get seats or whatever they are. So I just wanted to mention that. And because at times we face so much discrimination and so many issues, it's very easy to fall into what I call like the trauma porn of trans people, right? And we start looking at trans people just as our issues, right? And I don't want to take away from the fact that we do face a lot of discrimination, we do face a lot of issues, we do face a lot of terrible realities, right? But in my case, what I want to highlight from our community, and it's going back to that word, is the beauty of the community, right? The beauty of this community. We are so beautiful, not just in the outside, because we are so beautiful, but we are so beautiful as a community. And I want to mention, me and Lala and Sean and Tabata, who is in the sitting there, we have been instrumental in the route that we took to get where we are nowadays. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them, right? And I like to think that they wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me too, right? And we have been supporting each other, right? And that's what we do, right? We support each other. We become family. We become mentors to each other. We become supporters and collaborators, right? So I want to take a minute to focus on the beauty of this community, on the real important work that we do to support each other and to support others, right? To support the L, to support the G, to support the B. I support women's movements. I support women's rights. I support Black Black initiatives. I support immigrants. Well, I am an immigrant, right? I support, we support everybody else. But unfortunately, the support not all the time comes back, right? A lot of the times, we as trans people, specifically as trans women, we face a lot of criticism from cisgender women, right? That don't want to compete in the same things, that they don't want us to use the same bathrooms. So sometimes we spend so much effort on supporting other causes, and sometimes that support doesn't come back. But it's something that has been consistent in my life, has been the support from my peers, right? So I want to focus on that today. I want to focus on the beauty of being trans and the beauty of being in the same community and in the beauty of just living our full lives, right? It is a beautiful thing to be yourself. It is a beautiful thing. It's nothing better than that.
Oh my gosh, yes. But also when you think about, just think about like policy for the longest, like trans people, like even there was a time, I'm a realist, so hey, I'm about to get upset, it is what it is. There was a time in the movement where even our peers said, you know what, we're gonna take the tea over here we'll come and get y'all. Because we knew the White House wasn't gonna go for it. And it was really interesting because I just was at the HRC dinner and Nancy Pelosi was just talking about that, like how that had happened and how it was so much infighting on how so many people were like, what do you mean you're taking the tea off it to push things through? So we have, as trans people, we have been here before. You know why? Because we have always been the ones you can easily make the target. We've been your butt of jokes, hence David Chappelle. It is everything that happens to us, and yet, guess what? We are still standing here and breathing. So what does that tell you? That is what the fear is the fear of like, if we roll back all these things that you are just now seeing. There were people like Tracy Africa who was on boxes years before many of you who may be elders in the 80s who didn't even know you was walking to your grocery store and there was a trans person there. But now because we have all this visibility, because you are showing up to the party, it's like, oh no, we can't have them doing this. We've been doing all the background for so many people in history. You can research it yourself or you're in a college. There has been a queer or LGBT person that has been the background, the foreground for that. And because we're easy of them targets, you don't understand that solidarity is power. Because I am more than just my black transness. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. I have a mother who has been struggling all her life. I have a sister who's a single parent. I have nephews who I'm afraid that they will get killed by the police. I have family and friends who need access to abortion and health care. And so it is an intersectional issue in that always there has been a trans person there. When y'all didn't want y'all children, we took care of them. We raised them. When y'all threw them in the streets, we took care of them. We had some of our girlfriends who hit us up because their mother said, I ain't gonna take you to get no abortion because of the Lord and all these other kind of things. We knew where to go to help our friends get safe. When one of our girlfriends are getting hit or attacked, we show up or call one of our brothers to come do the dirty work. Like we've been for so long taking care of ourselves, including the resources. Y'all don't like sex work, honey, but for years, and particularly in New York culture, sex work has taken care of so many communities within this city. I know y'all know about the Meatpacking District and all 14th Street and all that. Who you think was over there? We was over there, but who was coming over there? And so there's always been like this thing of like, as long as there's like I tell people all the time, people will respect the lie and hate the truth. And so that's what it is, the truth that we are powerful, that we are who we say we are, that we stand in who we say we are, even when you take everything away. The thing about it now is we have so many youth that have access to things. We're much older. We got our A kicked. Mama. But, so it was a different era, so we just knew, we had it. Nowadays, kids can now go to school, so now everybody's freaked out and scared, because now it's like, oh my gosh, we've been in the schools, we've been doing all these things to survive. Now it's the point where we're saying, we're tired of living on your terms and in your comfortability. So if you don't want us in your schools, you know what? We're going to take them over to Hedrick Martin, where they can be themselves and get what they want. But there's no good here if we're not doing that in New York City. So right now what's being attacked? The Deep South, those rural areas. So what we have to do is funnel those resources down there and build up those folks for them to be able to have the power and the tools. I got to where I got to because I had the tools. Someone told me, Lala, this is what organizing is. This is what you do to organize. This is what power is. This is what tactics look like. This is what all these things, this is what the resources, I had to learn these things. I didn't know these things, and we're stronger together. So now there are things we can learn through intersectional movements. Now we need to sit with the abortion folks and say, honey, honey, we're going through healthcare, it's the same thing. It's a gender justice issue. So how can you take from my movement and yours, and we can be powerful instead of being resistant to each other, and we need to be attacking that right. And so that's what it is, moving the needle every day, moving the needle for us to be more in solidarity than more picking ourselves apart. I felt like, well, it's always about you, it's always about you, it will always be about the ones that are oppressed. Because as long as we're at the bottom and you keep rising up on the top, we're going to continue to have this kind of power structure happening.
I like going last because it's like I don't have much to say now. I'm like, well, for me, so the mayor has this initiative, and I'm not just like shouting them out because we're a part of the initiative, but it's called Breaking Bread and Building Barns. And I thought that was brilliant because it gives folks that normally would not have an opportunity to talk an opportunity to engage with each other over a meal, right? Like how innocent is that? For me, the answer to your question is replicating that model in every borough, in every city, in every state, in every town, and then figuring out from those bonds that we build, what do we have in common? And how do we then move the needle on the things that we have in common? Because to your point, yes, we should be talking to those folks that are fighting for abortion rights and reproductive rights and voters' rights and criminal justice reform and all of those things. But what gets us to the table? Because right now, we have so many people that still fear us. Oh my God, you're trans? I had no idea. I don't want to talk to you anymore. I'm so scared. Right? So what breaks that? What breaks past that? We can do something that's innocent as sitting down and sharing a meal, and then deciding what the platform looks like. And again, back to how we mobilize and what we're going to do. Because if we share a meal together, we get an opportunity to see we have more in common than not. And then I think we can begin to build this platform that folks are speaking the same language. We are recognizing that they're using us as a tool, all of us. Because I don't just want a message for LGBT folks. I want a message for humans. Like, this is a human experience. It goes so far beyond my gender presentation, my sexual orientation. It's about, like, my basic right to live. And if all of us break it down like that over a meal, I'm going to keep saying a meal because I want them to put more money in the budget. But if we keep doing it over a meal, I just think that's just groundbreaking to be able to sit down with folks that we ordinarily would be adversarial with and bring these discussions up and then figuring out and then taking it back to policymakers and saying, okay, this worked, but we want more money because we want to do it this way. Or the community said that it would look better if we did this or if we've added that. And then we can model that behavior and take it to other states because we do have to go back down south and we do have to go to those rural areas because our LGBT siblings in those spaces are suffering. So how do we make sure that they're going to get what they need? Because their politicians are not going to put it in place. So that's my response. Oh, and just I just have to say, this is my family here, right? So you're gonna see all the interactions with us because these my sisters, and I haven't seen them in a long time. So I'm really just enjoying being up here with them.
We have just one last question, and then I'm going to turn the floor over to Aaron for the Q&A. But you've already mentioned breaking bread and building bonds. I want to give you also a chance to shout out, like, if you had one organization or one thing that you want people to Google during this talk or when they leave, what would you pick for them to learn more about what needs to happen moving forward?
I love to give you hundreds of trans organizations throughout the country. At this present moment, the most important thing that I am focusing is adjacent to transness, and it's sex work. So I invite you to check Decrim New York. Many of us are able to make a living through sex work, and I am a huge supporter of decriminalization of sex work, full decriminalization of sex work, not partial decriminalization of sex work or the Nordic model. Don't even learn that work, it doesn't exist. All you look for is full decriminalization of sex work. So I invite you to check Decrim New York and the work that we're doing to decriminalize sex work in the state of New York.
Yeah, there are so many to name, but one thing I will say, because it is translated visibility, so I want to, for once, like kind of not center organizations, just go into like news feeds, like look for trans crowdfunding. If you see people's GoFundMes, if you know a trans person in your life, just hit their Cash App, hit their Venmo, take them to dinner, take them to the spa, tell them that they're important, tell them that they're valued. Say, hey, what do you want to do with your life? Us, we have dreams. We want to have families and homes and take trips and do these things. So it's not just about what organization have I gave to so I can say I checked it off. But no, you need to find a trans person to go and invest in their life, to let them know that you are their friend, you care. If you're having hard times, you're feeling suicidal, we are having high rates of suicide right now because of all these bad legislation. So that's what you do. Pour into an individual person. Stop looking into a group of people or an organization or like, oh, let me find the blue check marks. Let me make sure I like their things so they can reshare me so they can see me. No, there are people who are on the ground, people that you see every day people who are homeless, people that are hanging out in parks, people that are online just looking for a friend outside of their trans and someone to understand them and say that my transness does not stop our bond, our friendship, that you want me to be a homeowner, that you want me to be an entrepreneur, that you want me to go to college and all these other dreams. You want me and you're invested in me having a family and those type of things. So I employ folks to go deeper than just organizations because those organizations do need the funding, but that individual thing will help them become where we're at today because someone took a chance on us. So some of them are looking for someone to say, oh, I see Sean, I see Cecilia, I see Lala, I see Tabitha. When's my term gonna come? Or when is somebody gonna invest in me like that? Because I only can do so much. Hey, I do this everywhere I go to. If you don't want to do it, right? You can easily just hit me up and give me the coin, and I will get it in the hands of where it needs to go. That way you ain't got to feel the pressure. You ain't got to toss and turn that night. I will do it for you since you don't want to find somebody. I will be your go-to for you to fund and pour into people like that because I'm telling you, it's very important. You would think that there are so many trans people who are really alone. Many of us that there are folks that are alone and who just need a regular friend or someone to believe in them and invest in them without saying you did it and without giving them gaslighting and tokenizing them, but really because it's that human thing and it's a human thing to do.
That being said, I'll be taking donations back by the exit sign. So if you're so inclined, thank you very much. I appreciate it. No, I don't want to tell folks not to donate. Right? I'm gonna take a step back from not donating, and what I will say is. Normally, when folks donate, they look for those shiny organizations, right? Those organizations whose operating budgets are already $3 million. They have endowments, funds. The CEO makes like $300 and something thousand. Those are normally the organizations that when a Trans Day of Visibility or Pride Month that they go to. Normally, when you donate to an organization like that, maybe 4 cents, 10 cents, or for each dollar that you've donated may go to trans programming, and that's a strong, if lucky, and that's a strong maybe. So
Most of the time it's just outreach,
that's what we good for. So I'm gonna, I guess, challenge you to find some intention with your giving. Right? We've already agreed that our allies need to step up. We've already said that we want y'all in Congress with us, and we're gonna hit the street and all of that other stuff. But we gotta fund it. Who's gonna pay for the bus? So I'm going to ask you to be incredibly intentional about where your dollars go. If your dollars are going for TG&C and B organizations, funding, folks, a manicure, whatever it is, then find an organization, do a little bit of research, because there are a whole lot of organizations out there, and not all of them are doing what they say they're going to do. So do some research, build a relationship, and then begin to give and help them raise money and raise their visibility. So that's what I'll ask you to do.
Maybe Destination Tomorrow. Maybe Destination. You know those organizations? DT. They call it DT.
DT.
Destination Tomorrow. No.
We do some great stuff, and I'm
Donate
not
to
just saying
Destination
that.
Tomorrow. Donate to Destination Tomorrow. It goes to do great work. I not because he's my brother, but I know the work. I know like people. We talk to each other, right? And people are like, oh, I'm going to shelter. I'm going to housing. I'm looking for housing. And I'm going to Destination Tomorrow. I have a friend who just went there and receiving services, is being helped to get look for a job, is being given housing, is being given the famous 2010E that nobody wants to do, but they're doing it already. So support Destination Tomorrow. Do that because they're doing it in New York and they're doing it in Georgia.
Thank you. And can I just say one more thing? When we talk about the relationship that we all have, Tabitha's my daughter. She's a pain in the butt, but I'm gonna shout Tabitha out because that's my baby girl. And we've been through a lot. All of us have been through a lot, but I think it's a testament to the fact that we stay down for each other. And Cecilia is never gonna say this, but when the trans equity funding came out, Cecilia was instrumental in helping us get funding to open our first emergency shelter in the Bronx. And she never says it. She's real shy about it and stuff, but that's the kind of relationship we have. It's not just surface, right? We chase dreams together and then help fulfill them. So I appreciate you.
I just had a flashback when we didn't even know how to do like lobbying or anything like that, and we got together and we went to city council and started knocking on doors, asking for money, and then they gave us money, and we're like, what?
This works. This stuff works.
That is a great note to end on. So I'm going to turn it over to Aaron, who's going to moderate a Q&A. We have audience online and in person, so take it away.
Thank you, panelists. So let's go ahead and turn over. I'm sure we have a lot of audience members who have burning questions. So, yeah, right here, yeah. Oh, we have a microphone.
Mike is coming.
Thank you. This was great. Since I work a little bit in healthcare with a not-for-profit that has a trans program, Community Healthcare Network, Dr. Freddie Milano. I've been the board chair for 33 years, so before the trans program. But anyway, what I'd like to ask is what do you want from the healthcare system? And by the healthcare system, I mean not only the public healthcare system, the private healthcare system, the medical profession, the private insurance companies, the whole medical industrial complex of this country.
Thank you for your work. Sorry. Oh, sorry.
It's so interesting because I just had this conversation the other day with my girlfriends in LA. And one thing that's really funny to me is that you could be a cisgender person and you can go to the doctor and say, I want pecs. Or you can be a soccer mom and say, I want to look like a bombshell. You ain't got to go to no doctor and get no psych letter. But for me to get something that is affirming to me, for me to live and breathe my authentic self, I got to give you 50 letters a million times. It has to be up to date, and the doctor still can tell me yes or no. As well as, because we have trans healthcare in some of these states, these doctors are so greedy to swipe our insurance that they're botching my brothers and sisters and siblings. They're not giving them adequate care and telling them what they're going to do to their body versus sitting with them and saying, what does your transition look like for you, and how as me as a medical profession can make this smoothly as possible and help you guide you in the best way, and not way that's policing and telling you, I'm going to do this or I can't do this. But that letter and that annoyance, that's something to think about. That you as a cisgender person can go and get anything you want and then deem it cosmetic. This is a necessity for me to live, and I got to go through all these loopholes. Yeah. And you try to say that I don't understand that. So that's something I said, like, we need to push back on and work on, but specifically all these botched surgeries that my siblings are having, y'all really need to like looking at, because that causes more damage.
Yeah. I just say yes to leading the first day of the Trans Health Conference coming up. Yeah. I was like, Freddie got me, though. I was like, Freddie got me. Freddie got me. I was like, when he's like, can we talk for 5 minutes? I'm like, he's going to ask me to do something. He's going to ask me to, and he got me, I am going to say, and this is not a community health network thing, or it's the healthcare in general. We need time. And this is not just a trans thing, right? Healthcare has moved to a model where you go to the doctor and you have 15 minutes. Yeah. And you better tell me all your needs in 15 minutes, and I have to document everything. My doctor never look at me because they're always documenting things, right? Because there's always some kind of risk out there if they don't document everything. And everything has to happen in 15 minutes, right? I am 51 years old. Thank you. This is the part where you all are surprised. You all are surprised. I'm gonna say this again. I'm 51 years old. I know. But I remember going to the doctor, and yes, you had to wait the whole day to see the doctor, but then you see the doctor and you spend 45 minutes with your doctor talking and checking and things. Nowadays, healthcare has become a capitalist form of what it used to be, right? Where we don't have time to see doctors, where we can't talk about our problems, right? Most of our problems are not just about the body, are about like what's going on at home, what is going on with our partners, what is going on with our sexual health, what is going on with our mental health. Going to the doctor nowadays is compressed to 15 minutes. So I wish for healthcare to go a little bit back on time, right? To stay where it is in terms of advances, but go a little bit back on time and be more approachable for people to get a relationship with doctors, medical providers in general. Mm-hmm. Thank you for the question. Yeah.
Oh, can I just real quick? Yeah. And for me, it's just that, like, I want doctors to learn to treat the whole person, right? Every visit is not related to me being a trans person. So if I came in with a sore throat, you don't need to know what my dosage is on my testosterone, or you don't need to know if I had top surgery or bottom surgery, or if I'm considering it. Like, treat my entire body, not just my transness.
It's not trans flu or cis flu. It's just the flu. You know.
Right here.
Hello. Thank you very much for this conversation and for everything, especially for spotlighting the legacy of resilience and beauty within the trans community. I kind of wanted to ask about the tension that you may or may not feel between visibility and tokenism or commodification. And then the consequent responsibility and pressure to educate, and then the weight that places on you, especially in predominantly cisgender, heterosexual, yeah, you get it. Anyways, and then going a little further, I don't know what role community plays in education and fighting tokenism, and especially all situated in late stage capitalism and just everything being a commodity.
Who sent you?
Yes, question.
Who sent you?
Yes, question.
Who sent you? Yeah. Who sent you?
I think one thing I always say is I think a lot of trans folks, especially when you get an opportunity, it could be anywhere, right? You get opportunities oh my gosh, this opportunity, and sometimes it approaches you they see me or I'm getting that opportunity. And you get there, and then these weird things start to happen, and you don't know what it's called. You're like, this is something's not clicking. Something does not. I came in here, and I felt more like I'm no longer their office pet, and now I'm the office threat. And all I did was just tell them to change a name on a form, just those type of things. I think as you learn yourself and be around other leaders and just talking to other professionals. So one thing I also do in part of my just development is I do try to have once a month one-to-ones with other business people that I want to talk to, or just to get their other business things out of them just to talk about just things from, I can see like, okay, it's not just me, or that is tokenizing. Or just really, when you know it, like calling it out, but also going to a safe place or somewhere to really talk about it, actually talking about it, is going to happen. If you are a black woman, you're going to be tokenized in this capitalistic world. If you are a trans person, if you are a queer person, if you are an undocumented person, if you are a person of color, it's going to happen. It's just figuring out when it happened, how, making sure that you don't internalize it where it breaks your soul. I'm using the Beyonce quote, I never thought I would do that in a million years. But it's like, when you say like, no, that is tokenizing, and that's not gonna break me. No, that is gaslighting me, and I'm gonna give that to my therapist later, so I'm not holding on to it. A lot of us hold on to it, and a lot of us, particularly when you're a marginalized person, a lot of your things was like, just take it, Sean. It's gonna happen. This is what happens. This is what you wanted. You wanted to come in the workplace. It happens. It happens to all of us. No, it should not happen to none of us. And when we start allowing that, then we also slowly let them systems take back our power by that. But also, with the pandemic and things that happen, I tell my friends, it's a great time to be an entrepreneur. It is a great time to rethink how you want to work and be in the world. Like, we used to do all these things and think that we have to do those things. Remember, they told us you could never let people out of prison early. Took a pandemic, right? They told us you can't let people not pay rent. You can't have all this funding and all this. No, the world will crash. We can't just feed the people every day. So we've done a lot of things during the pandemic that this world has told us that we couldn't. So why are we reverting back? That taught me that no, the people power will always win, and your resistance will always win. That's what it taught me.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll keep it short. For me, I used to always resent that, right? Because I felt like it was my obligation to go into the room and to explain it, right? And then I got to a point like, why the fuck do I have to keep explaining who I am? Google is your friend, and all of the information is there, my friend. Go, figure it out. But I think it also gave us the opportunity to come in rooms and shake shit up, because you got a whole bunch of folks that are aware of what's happening. So now I can use that tokenism and say, okay, I'm the only black trans man in this room. What are you doing for black trans men who are suffering from HIV because they identify as gay? What are we doing? Are we talking about that? So you get an opportunity to turn the tables and challenge it in some ways. Because if you're gonna invite me into space, I'm gonna assume that you're friendly. And if you're friendly, then you should be open and listening to what I'm saying. And if you're listening to what I'm saying to give us more money and to find those folks that you historically haven't spoken to before. I'm telling you all those things. And as my friend, I'm going to assume that you're going to do it. Because if not, now my role in shaking shit up is to put you on blast so that everybody else knows, don't go over there. They're exploiting us over there. Or if it's another organization that may $150,000 fund, and they give the trans portion 5% or $5,000, but the bulk of the work is for the trans community. Don't go back there. They're exploiting you. So that tokenism now can be used for good in a way. At first it was like, I'm never going there again. Now I understand my superpower when I walk in the room, because we're going to change some shit when I get here.
We're about at time, but maybe, does anyone have a final question?
Hello, my name is Ariana. Before I get into my question, I just want to give you guys some context. I'm currently the student body president at Hunter College, and I'm one of the first openly out presidents that they've had in a long time as well. So, thank you. And I do want to say that we try to do like a lot of events for queer students, but often where we fall short is trying to identify how we can support our trans students, mainly because we don't have a lot of trans people who are in student government currently. My question is that I assume all of you have been students at one point in your life. What type of resources, initiatives, workshops, just things that you would have liked to see, or do you think would actually help trans students in whatever portion of their life? I'm trying to like think of organizations, but it's often become a thing where it's like, oh, like a panel of like, here's trans activists to interact with, but nothing more, I want to say, obviously that's helpful, but it's nothing more integral to like their day-to-day life. So if you have any ideas, we would love to like host those ideas, hopefully sometime in the next semester. And we would also love to invite you guys back for any type of speaker events and initiatives.
Thank you. Thank you for all your work. Thank you for doing all of this, though. This is great. I was just reminded, like, when I was 17 years old and I'm from the countryside in Argentina, and I went to the big city because, I played the French horn as a child, and I wanted to become a French horn player. And I found other trans people, and I started my transition. So in the second year, I had to stop going to school because, in the 80s in Argentina, we were just coming out of the dictatorship. You couldn't be trans and go to school, right? So I think that we somehow have come a long way, and I see many of my siblings being able to go to school and pursue their careers, and that's great. But in reality, it's a lot that can be done for trans people who are going through the educational system, right? The first thing, and you're gonna find a big block, right? Because every time when we have gone together to the city of New York and says like, we need to do trans housing, right? Trans housing that is specific for trans people. And the city told us, oh no, that's discriminating against cisgender people. And I'm like, that's not a thing, right? You cannot do that. It's like, it's the same thing like discriminating white people. That does not exist, right? It's not such a thing, right? So I think the best way to do is kind of find ways to navigate this narrative in which whatever you can do for trans people is going to be blocked by policies, right? So I think the best thing that you can do, that you all can do, is kind of like draft a strategy on how to support trans people in the educational system and a hunter. And instead of looking to do something actionable, do a big plan of how you're gonna navigate this for the next 10 years. So I'm all for doing little things, right? Yes, this and that. But what I recommend you is to sit down find all the trans students that are here, brainstorm what their needs are, brainstorm what solutions look like, and brainstorm how to make it happen in a big plan for the next 10 years. And of course, do whatever you can, little things to do, right? Yeah, education, getting trans people money, getting trans people special housing, whatever it is, right? But what I say, don't spend too much effort on little things. Look at the big plan, because that's what our enemies have been doing, right, for decades. They have brainstorming, they have been like doing, polling, and they've been doing, how you call these groups that they have, where they brainstorm how to, focus groups, and they, and think tanks, right, on how to affect our lives. It is important that we start doing the same, right? We have to start think tanking and focus grouping and planning on how to create the wellness that we need. So do little things, but look at the big picture. Do a big plan that you can put in motion in the next 10 years.
And then also look at safety, right? Because when I was a student, I'm not gonna out myself because I don't know how people are gonna respond. I don't know if it's gonna follow my career. I don't know what people are gonna say. So what kind of safe environment are you creating before you invite those folks in? That's gonna matter. And they also wanna know that it's a safe and affirming space. You don't just want me to show up because, hey, we're missing a letter from the alphabet. We need to get the T in here. We wanna make sure that you're intentional with the space, the safest space, and is an affirming space, as affirming as it could be, because I'm sure there are more trans students here that may not be presenting themselves, and non-binary as well, that may not be presenting themselves out of fear.
As well as, if you see that that's a gap that's here, then you should sit with yourself as why are not teaching people trying to enroll to come here? What research have you done? Another thing is always, I'm a nerd, so like surveys work a lot. I got a lot of stuff. I got a lot of things I got done through the city council. A lot of things that I proposed for to be the Trans Equity Fund became because I surveyed my community in every aspect of their life, and I took it from borough to borough. And even when our first borough convening was in Bronx, it was in at a college, and they were saying the same thing, like, oh, why ain't this? Because have you invited them? Have you ever, as your college recruit person, you have recruit people in college, have you went and recruit and said, hey, I want to recruit? And also, when you recruit them, are you going to make sure that you have to understand that you're going to be dealing with somebody who may not have never been in the school institution for half their life because of fear of coming in here. So like now you want me to revert from my safety zone and come in for what? I'll go to online school and it's safer. So it's about proving those gaps and what pressure you can put on the systems here to say there's a gap here, I've proven there's a gap here, here's the stats on those gaps, and here's my plan in the next 10 years. My sisters say for us to get closer to like filling this gap.
Thank you all. Thank you for such an incredible panel. I want to thank the panelists and the audience members with such excellent questions. I also thank you to Harold Holzer, Alexis Fisher, Mac Barrett, and all the staff at the Roosevelt House. A special thank you to the New York City Commission on Human Rights for helping us put this event on. This is really wonderful. I also thank you. I think we have representatives from the mayor and speaker's office in the audience. Thank you so much for coming. I had a couple quick announcements I just wanted to inform students about and also the community for upcoming events. First, we have the deadline for the Pride Policy Fellowship coming up on May 1st. This is for any students enrolled at Hunter College who need funding for an internship or research. We're hoping to fund 2 $5,000 fellowships. So please apply for that. And if you need more information on it, please come up to me during the reception after this event. We also have an upcoming event for the TGNC community at Hunter. We're going to be doing a Know Your Rights training with the Sorensen Center at CUNY Law School that will inform students about legal name and gender changes, in addition to how to navigate or advocate for yourself within the CUNY process, which I know is the #1 question I get from the TGNC community at Hunter College. So please sign up for that event. And we also have a book event with Craig Seligman's new book, Doris Fish and the Rise of Drag, on June 14th for Pride Month coming up. Before we end, though, I think we have brief comments from Tabitha.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for coming and your willingness to do this. For me, this is very important. It is a huge deal as the daughter of Sean, but to see 3 of my mentors that actually guided me into this work, to be able to sit in the space, and I haven't had them together for a very long time in one space. So for me, to you, thank you. Thank you, Lala, for coming off your vacation and finding time to be here, to give your emotional and your intellectual currency for us to capitalize off of in the now by hearing your stories. And I would encourage you all to take that money and that currency that you just have and make sure that you pour it out with intentionality into communities that need it the most to move the needle forward towards a more equitable New York and an equitable future for all of us. Because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here. And if it wasn't for me, they wouldn't be here.
Yeah, over.
Sorry, I'm standing between you all and the food. But real quick from the New York City Commission on Human Rights, we do have another event coming up on April 12th, Wednesday. It's our 7th annual LGBTQ community Iftar celebration, the intersectionality with our LGBTQ and Muslim brothers, sisters, siblings. So we're looking forward to that.
Yeah. I think that's an excellent note to end the event on. Please, we have a reception upstairs. I think we have